What's up guys, Shawnthebro here, and in today's episode of the fighting game tutorial series we are going to be going over continuing to improve our settings screen. So in the previous episodes we set up our settings menu and we added children widgets to it in this widget selector, or this widget switcher. And what we want to do is have a button that is bound in our game for our widgets, and we can use it to navigate between these tabs. So previously, we've only been able to switch between the gameplay settings and the control settings in our settings menu by these arrows. So I want to use an input today to switch the active widget, and I want to make sure that all the inputs I have are only firing for that active widget and not other widgets. Doesn't matter if they're all open at the same time. So for example, my settings screen, I can navigate everything here on my gameplay settings, but because of the way we set it up, we're not navigating through anything on the control screen. Even though it is a widget on the widget switcher in our settings menu, it is not the active widget. So today will be that entire swap and allowing us to control the control mapping widget as well as a few other style changes. If you want to get caught up in the series, you can check out the entire fighting game tutorial series. This is how we've done everything in this game. So you'll see things like our character select screen, our character entrances, our super moves, and all that fun stuff. If you're interested, I'll link you to the entire playlist right here in the top right corner. Alternatively, if you don't care about that and you just care about the settings screen, I still recommend you watch the first episode where we set up the settings menu, as we are going to be building on top of that logic today. So if you follow along with these settings episodes, you will be able to follow along with this episode exactly as expected. With that out of the way, we can go ahead and get started. This is a code and blueprint tutorial series. We're going to be focusing on the blueprint, specifically the widgets today. And mainly I want my settings screen and my change control screen. I do want to go to my parent settings screen. So this is the settings screen that has the widget switcher and has all the children on it as well. I want to have all my logic start in the settings screen today. We'll move it to the gameplay settings and the other children widgets when the time is right in this episode, but I want to prove a point with this. And I'm going to this widget and going to the graph, have this screen also listen for input actions from our widget navigation interface. So if we go to the class settings on our settings screen, scroll down to the interfaces section of the details panel, go to implemented interfaces and add our widget navigation interface and select it. This is the widget navigation interface that we used on our gameplay settings, and we were using it on here to do all of our movement, and we actually did it on our change control screen already for the movement as well. So if I search in here for widget navigation interface, I have tab left and tab right that I've already made in our code, in our widget navigation interface. These are the function calls. Remember, we're not trying to call the function here. We want the actual event. So event tab left. I'm going to put it up to my on-pressed left category selector. So this series also supports mouse inputs. And so previously I was pressing these inputs to change our menus out. I still have them on the screen. We're still going to be able to utilize them. But the event tab left is for controllers and keyboards. The on-pressed will be for the physical button press with a mouse. And I want to grab the event tab right as well. Put them together. And now we have the events that we need. Put them in a proper space so there's enough space to make it clean. So what we're really doing when we are using our tabs is changing our widget switcher to use a different active widget. So the widget switcher is something that we have in our design view here called settings widget switcher. It is a variable, so we can access it here in the graph. Get it. And we can get the active widget index here, and we can determine which one is active. Or we can get the active widget, which is the widget itself. Then we can also use it to set the active widget or the active widget index. So you could do it off of either. I do want to know what the active widget is, and so I'm not going to make assumptions here. So if I do get active index or get active widget index, you can use the integer itself like I was doing before, or you can use the little helper function. Either way is good. When I tab to the left, I'm going to assume that is a negative, because in the designer, the way the widget switcher reads them is this first one is 0, this next one is 1. So this is 0, this is 1. So if I'm tabbing to the left, I'm expecting to go back to 0 if I'm at 1, If I'm at 0, I could flip around and go back to 1. But say I had 3 buttons in here, and I was on this button. Pressing tab left should bring me back to index 1. Pressing it again should bring me back to index 0. So if I get the active widget index and subtract 1 from it, very simply, and set the active widget index to that new value, and plug my nodes in here, I have to go to my project settings and figure out what input my tab left and tab right are. Make sure you have these correct. So input, and I look for menu tab left, menu tab right. I'm using the left and right bracket or the shoulders on a gamepad. Now we can copy this logic and paste it down below. But instead of subtracting 1, we are going to add 1. And this will be for our right tab right, or pressing the right category selector. But remember, even though we set this up, this is not going to work in the settings screen with our current logic, because our current logic works by only allowing these inputs to work on the current widget, which we've set to be the gameplay settings when we load it up. But this is perfectly fine, because we intentionally set it up where we can make calls to our parent widget. So in this case, I'm going to add a custom event. Let's call it settings tab left for our settings screen. And we're going to make a custom event for settings tab right. The event tab left and the event tab right ones are going to need to be moved, so we can cut them and paste them in our gameplay settings. This is where we would trigger these ones from. However, in the settings screen, the settings tab right and the on pressed for the category selectors can remain. The logic we set up here is the same, but in gameplay settings now, if we detect these inputs are pressed, we can call up to our settings menu. And to do that, we have our variable down here called settings reference. We can get it. If you want, you can cast it to a validated get just to make sure. Might not always be valid depending on what you're doing with it. And we can call settings tab left. And we're going to do the same thing for event tab right. So we can use our settings reference, make sure it is valid, and then call settings tab right. Now, since we fixed this logic up in our settings screen and everything is working, you can go back to your class settings and make sure you remove the implemented interface, widget navigation interface, because we don't actually need that in our settings menu. I was just doing that as proof of concept. No, I don't want to transfer the functions because the settings screen does not use them. One other thing in our gameplay settings widget, in event construct here at the very end, we were setting the current widget to be self, but we're doing that in the settings screen manually when it loads. And so I think anytime we go to our settings, we should have at least the parent settings screen here. We don't need to manually set this on the gameplay settings. It's not hurting anything right now. It's just doing it twice, but I am going to remove that from my gameplay settings. Everything will still work completely fine. Now, in the future, we will be editing our change control screen to work perfectly as well. Going back to the settings screen and the events that we implemented in today's episode, after we set the new active widget, we do want to set that widget to be the current widget. You have a couple ways you can do this. One thing you can do is just simply grab your settings widget switcher again, drag off of it, get active widget, and then you could set current widget equal to the active widget here. That is an option for you if you want. I would do this anytime we are swapping either left or right, because anytime we change the widget, we are going to want to do that. This doesn't have any safeguards, so you can set the widget switcher back to the same index and it will set this again. That won't hurt anything, but just be aware of that. We have to add these inputs, or these events, for the tabs to our change control screen as well. You can copy them directly from gameplay settings. Just make sure you do have them in here. And again, let me clean things up. But there we go. So now in change control screen, we have this as well. If we go to play the game, go into settings, I can now go back and forth between these two menus. And I can only navigate the menu that I'm currently on, as expected. One way you can tell is I will hover over my back button on my gameplay settings, switch to my control screen, press the confirm button, and you'll notice it will try to have me bind the jump input, not exit out of the menu. If I put a key for this, and then I go backward to my other menu, I can press confirm and exit out. Another thing to note is that these little buttons should work, so if I press this button, it's not going to do anything because I'm on the left. If I press this, I should go to controls, and I can go back and forth. Anyway guys, that's all I got for you today. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed improving your settings menu and figuring out how to work with parent and children widgets with menu navigation interfaces, then please subscribe. It does more for myself and the channel than anything else you can do, and I really appreciate it. I want to give a huge shout out to my YouTube membership, Patreon supporters, and Discord subscribers. You guys are amazing. I'm so grateful for you. If you ran into any problems while following this tutorial or any of my tutorials, feel free to join the Discord community. There is a link in the description, and I would be happy to help you. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Shawnthebro, and I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye, guys.